Good morning, this is Chris.
And this is Imelda reading the Society News for Friday the 14th of June.
Tuesday the 18th of June. Laura will be at the Our Place Community Drop-In session at the West Wight Community Centre in Mower Place, Freshwater. Come along to say hello between 10 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. and enjoy a free cup of tea or coffee. The swimming group are swimming at the waterside pool in Ryde. The pool is closed to the public whilst the group swims. There are male and female volunteers to help you get in and out of the pool, as well as lifeguards to ensure your safety. To join the swimming group, please call the site for Wight first to notify us of your swimming ability. You need to register with the office at Millbrook House first to be able to swim with the group.
And on Wednesday the 19th of June, the weekly coffee morning will be held at Millbrook House, this week from 10:30 a.m. There will also be a low vision drop-in between 10 a.m. and 12 noon. This is a weekly event to allow you to view and try the low vision equipment we have at the Society without the need for an appointment. We will be swimming at the special care session held at West Wight Sports Centre in Freshwater. The session runs from 12 noon until 1 p.m. The cost to swim is £4.20. Minibus transport may be available depending on location and costs £2. If you are interested in joining the group, then we will need to ask some questions about your swimming ability, general health and mobility, and next of kin details. Numbers are restricted for this session, so please register your interest early.
Thursday the 20th of June. The Thursday social group are meeting at Millbrook House. The group meets from 10:30 a.m. till 2 p.m. You can knit or just have a chat. Then later in the afternoon, volunteers come in and read to the group from different topics. If you would like to join the group, then please contact the Society on 522 205. And on the same day, why not join us for a quiz night to be held at the Waverley Inn at Carisbrooke in aid of Sight for Wight. The quiz starts at 7:30 p.m. Teams of 4 at £3 per person. Food is not included but may be ordered before the quiz. Please pre-book tables by calling the Waverley Inn on 01983 522 338.
And other news? The RNIB invites you to come and connect. The RNIB would like to hear your feedback and update you with what is going on in the community. So you are invited to come and connect with RNIB, other local support, and most importantly, each other. Dates and locations for the scheduled events on the Isle of Wight are Friday the 12th of July 2019, 10 a.m. to 1 at the Honey Hill Room, the Riverside Centre, the Quay, Newport, PO 30 2QR. Friday the 2nd of August 2019, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Falkland Cross Hall, 6 to 8 Falkland Cross Road, Shanklin, PO 37 7LA, and the schedule for each day is 10 a.m, free time to grab some refreshments and speak with local support and others affected by sight loss. 10:45 a.m, organised talks to update you on changes in RNIB information about RNIB Connect and a chance to feedback. 12:15, more free time for refreshments, a chance to collect information, meet local representatives, and speak with others affected by sight loss. If you'd like to join the RNIB at an event, please RSVP by contacting the Community Facilitator, Hazel Cross, Her email is hazel.cross@rnib.org.uk, or you can phone 07525 923 093.
Freshwater Listening Group meets on the last Tuesday of each month in Freshwater Library at 11 a.m. The group is for people with sight problems or other disabilities which make it difficult to read print. Each month we listen to an audio book supplied by Calibre Audio Library and meet to discuss the book. It is a friendly group with coffee and biscuits. The next meeting is the 25th of June, 11 a.m. Copies of The Crow Trap by Anne Cleves from Calibre are available on disc or memory stick in Freshwater Library now. Open Sight Hampshire are hosting the Eye Contact exhibition on Wednesday the 29th of September 2019 between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. at the Aegeus Bowl in Southampton. It is Hampshire's biggest free exhibition which brings together the latest equipment and services available to those with or at risk of sight loss. For more information, please call 02380 641 244 or visit their website www.opensight.org.uk.
And we have been informed of changes to some bus routes on the island by Southern Vectis due to the Isle of Wight festival. The number 39 bus route through Mayfield Drive in Newport changes in effect from 10 a.m. Wednesday the 12th of June until 4 p.m. Monday the 17th of June. The route will divert Fairmount Drive right into Cook Avenue, left into Atkinson Drive, left into Halbury Lane, back into Cross Lane and along Staplers and right into Furlongs to continue normal route. The number 5 route, Fairless Road, Newport, from 11 a.m. on Wednesday the 12th of June until 4 p.m. on Monday the 17th of June. During the festival, Fairley Road will become one way towards Newport only. Route 5 towards East Cowes will operate through Staplers and Wootton to reach Whippingham. Buses departing East Cowes and heading to Newport are not affected by this diversion. However, buses will not stop at White Houses, Island Harbour, or the old police station. Additionally, Upton Road in Ryde will be closed between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. on Monday the 17th, Tuesday the 18th, Wednesday the 19th, Thursday the 20th and Friday the 21st. Route 37 buses will instead divert from Ashy Road towards Smallbrook and then into Carter Road before continuing normal routes at Upton Cross. Temporary stops will take place on Ashy Road near to the pedestrian crossing and on Carter Road close to Upton Cross. Route 1 will be unable to serve Cowes Red Jet Terminal from 8 p.m. on Sunday the 16th of June until 5 p.m. on Monday the 17th of June. While this closure is in place, Route 1 will start and terminate at Cowes Carvel Lane by Marks and Spencer's. For up-to-date information regarding exact dates and times of road closures, please contact Island Roads on 822 440.
This week's In Touch. Blind prisoners compensated for discrimination. Blind and visually impaired prisoners in the US state of Maryland have been awarded $1.4 million by the Correctional Service for Discrimination. They successfully claimed that they were not given access to information, jobs and courses to give them equality within the prison or during rehabilitation. Eve Hill, representing the group, says some have had to pay for sighted guide assistance and others to perform sex acts to have information read to them. Tyrrell lost his sight through a gunshot wound and says life was lonely and tough for him as a visually impaired prisoner. Benjamin Burrows, from Lee Day Solicitors, says he has represented visually impaired people in a number of cases here in the UK, and the picture is similar. The presenter is Peter White and the producer Lee Kumutat.
And now we move on to the Isle of Wight County Press itself for the 14th of June 2019. And the headlines are: first, new Undercliff plan, and second, hopes for CCTV. And the new Undercliff plan is as following. A consultation on the reinstatement of Undercliff Drive to traffic has been launched by the Isle of Wight Council. The authority is seeking the views of residents, businesses and visitors on possible plans to reopen the road, which suffered significant landslips in 2014. The Council has proposed working with the leading geotechnical consultants to design a scheme to reinstate the A3055 between Ventnor and Knighton. A consultation has been launched to gauge public opinion. Council leader and local ward member Councillor David Stewart said, "My view is it cannot be beyond our engineering capability to find a way to remedy a landslip of less than 100 metres. We have houses and businesses spread along the length of the undercliff, but the economic damage of the closure has spread well beyond these areas, with businesses far away as West Wight also noticing a drop in trade and tourism following the closure. However, while my personal views and that of the Cabinet are clear, we acknowledge others may take a different view, and this consultation seeks to gauge public support for the plan." Undercliff Drive was affected by major groundwork movements during the very wet winter of 2013 to 14. The landslides led to the loss of the road at 2 locations, landlocking 9 houses between the 2 sites. In 2016, access was restored to these properties, along with a through access for walkers, cyclists and horse riders. The cost of producing a design to reopen the road to traffic is estimated to be around £200,000 and would involve topographical surveys, ground investigation boreholes, a stability analysis and an environmental impact assessment. Currently, the cost to reinstate the road is estimated to be between £1 million and £2 million, dependent on whether the scheme allowed one- or two-way traffic, and if the new route was restricted to vehicles below a certain weight. The Council has acknowledged ground movement will continue in the future, and any investment in the area will need to take this into account. Councillor Ian Ward, Cabinet Member for the Infrastructure and Transport, said, "It's a complex issue that doesn't lend itself to a quick solution. But my view is the island needs to have this road open, and we should be making every effort to do so despite the obvious challenges. However, any decision will only be taken after consultation with islanders who are encouraging everyone to get involved." A 6-week consultation will start today, Friday, and end on July the 26th.
And the second headline from today's county press, hopes for CCTV. The island's CCTV control room could be partially reinstated in an apparent Isle of Wight Council U-turn. The county press has been told the police had raised concerns about public safety, which has led to a decision by the council to continue funding it. In a statement, the council confirmed it was dedicating £100,000 towards the service, but would not confirm this money would go towards staff. As part of a bid to make savings on the Highways PFI budget, 5 control room staff were axed from Island Road's Newport headquarters. Unison and the wider public had expressed concern that scrapping CCTV monitoring would make the island's streets less safe and put vulnerable people at risk. Unison Branch Secretary Mark Chiverton told the county press this week, following concerns expressed by police in common with what Unison members were warning about, the council has gone for a partial reinstatement. It is welcome news, but we still feel the original proposal to close it was flawed, and I question their judgment. It is important work they were doing at the control room, and they offered a very good value for money service. He said 2 positions had become available at the control room, and the previous staff had been given the opportunity to reapply for the posts. He also said there had been anger that the overall cost of the service equated to just a few months' service of the cost of a private consultant drafted in to make savings on the contract. J. Undara of Jasmine Consulting was paid almost £130,000 in 8 months. A spokesman for the council said, "We continue to liaise with police and have reached an agreement on a protocol that meets their requirements. Police will continue to be supported in reviewing CCTV footage, viewing specific cameras, or using the CCTV control room for the purposes of specific operations. The council will continue to fund this service at an approximate cost of £100,000. There will be reviews by the council and Hampshire Constabulary over the coming 6 months." Hundreds of people had signed a petition calling on the council to reverse the decision.
The next article is by Liam Chorley. We will remember them. Veterans of the Second World War gathered at St Thomas's Square in Newport to commemorate the 75th anniversary of D-Day. Among them was former navigator for the RAF, Ken Killeen, 97, of Honeyhill, Newport, born not far from the barracks. Ken was tasked with bombing German emplacements from 15,000 feet in the air, far above the clouds, relying on radar to pinpoint targets. Temperatures in the air would be as low as -40. "You needed your woolly undies," said Ken. "Everyone had a job to do, and they did it. If you had one weakness, you were dead." "We went after everything: rail and road connections, gun emplacements, troop concentrations, panzer divisions." Alongside Ken was Bill Shepherd, 97, of White Pit Lane, Newport, who was part of the RAF regimental escorting the Tactical Air Force. We were their protection. Fighters if they left southern England. They had 10 minutes. Then they had to go back because of the fuel. While Berlin was being divided, Bill was given leave to briefly return home when his wife gave birth to his son. "He was just a few months old when I saw him," Bill said. But I got really ill when I came home. I got pneumonia. They gave me a shot of penicillin, which was brand new at the time. Also at the service was Diane Jones-Evans, representing her father, Neil Shuttler, 101, who felt too emotional to attend. Neil was a member of the Royal Navy, enlisting at just 17 years old. He was 26 when he went to war. Diane spoke of how her father, towing a component for Mulberry Harbour, had to shoot away the connections because the sea was so rough his vessel was close to capsizing. Many events took place on the island and across the Solent. On Wednesday last week, spectators gathered in Ryde to watch the Red Arrows display over Portsmouth. Ventnor welcomed the MV Boudica in its coast, accompanied by Royal Navy warship. A symbolic mock-up landing craft was set on the beach, and deck chairs were arranged in the patterns 75 and 1944. Yarmouth celebrated with entertainment from Company B and Peter Osborne, and a tea party supported by the Delphi Lakeman Trust and Yarmouth Town Council.
Sewage in the sea after heavy rain. Surfers and sea swimmers have complained of raw sewage filling the seas off the Isle of Wight following recent heavy rain. Sewage overflow from stormwater was released into the sea, resulting in dirty water in the sea off a number of Isle of Wight beaches. Campaign group Isle of Wight Surfers Against Sewage has called on Southern Water to improve the way it deals with waste water. The group posted information about seawater quality on Facebook, showing sewage pollution in water off a number of Isle of Wight beaches, including Yaverland, Sandown, Shanklin, Ryde, Cowes and Gurnard. Matt Harwood of Isle of Wight Surfers Against Sewage said, "When we surf, sail, swim or play in seawater that has raw sewage in it, we are at risk of gastroenteritis, ear, nose and throat infections, skin infections, and even hepatitis and E. coli. The reason for sewage being pumped into the sea is due to sewage systems being overloaded after heavy rain. When this happens, treatment plants cannot process it all, so are bypassed and raw effluent is released into the environment. This removes the chance of sewage backing up into homes." A spokesman for Southern Water said, "We understand it's a complex and emotive issue when we have to release stormwater into the sea. During or following rainfall, all water companies, including Southern Water, sometimes release heavily diluted wastewater into watercourses and coastal waters. Such releases from our systems help protect homes and properties from being flooded with sewage. These stormwater releases are in line with our strict environmental permits and are permitted by the Environment Agency to prevent homes from flooding. Bathing water signs advising against swimming were already being put into place across the region by the local authority, as it is standard to advise against bathing following heavy rain due to the impact of water quality from a variety of sources. Works have been taken place for a new storm tank in Shanklin, which is part of our bathing water enhancement programme for ongoing improvement to bathing waters across our region. This new storm tank will be crucial in cutting down future releases. In response to the problem of sea sewage, Surfers Against Sewage, working with the Environment Agency, created the Safer Seas Service, the UK's first real-time water quality information app.
Firm buys 50% stake in Whitelink. A Canadian infrastructure investment corporation has bought a 50% stake in Whitelink. Fiera Infrastructure Inc., a multinational mid-market direct infrastructure investor, has acquired a 50% equity interest in Whitelink from Basalt Infrastructure Partners LLP. President of Fiera, Alina Osorio, said, "Fiera Infrastructure is very pleased with this addition to its diversified global portfolio. We believe Whitelink is uniquely positioned within its market and has a long history of operating on the Solent. We are delighted to be the new owners of the largest cross-Solent ferry operator and remain committed to investing in the business. We believe our investors will benefit from the increased diversification of our portfolio through exposure to the transportation subsector. We are also excited to work with the Whitelink management team to continue to deliver a best-in-class transportation service in the UK. Whitelink staff have been informed of the deal. Basalt will continue to have a 50% equity position in Whitelink. The transaction closed in May 2019. In an internal announcement, Keith Greenfield, Chief Executive of Whitelink, said, "Fiera are long-term investors and an excellent match for Whitelink, which also has a long-term horizon. For everyone working at Whitelink, it's a very much business as usual. Fiera coming on board at this time is an endorsement of our current strategy and the changes we have made, such as the successful introduction of Victoria of Wight. We will continue to focus on safety, service performance, and customer experience for our Isle of Wight customers and visitors alike. The management team and I are very much looking forward to working with our new and existing shareholders as we plan an exciting future for Whitelink and for our customers."
Threats made against prison officer's family. A serving prisoner who made threats against a prison officer's wife and children was spared any punishment by Isle of Wight magistrates. The court heard how Andrew Harry Hill, 28, told the officer he would find him on the outside and made threats against his family. An altercation between the two of them started when Hill had to be moved within the prison but refused. Tim Cole, prosecuting, told the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court last Friday. The officer warned Hill that if he did not move voluntarily, he would be moved with force, to which the prisoner replied, "If you touch me, I will put this in your face," gesturing to his pocket, suggesting he had a weapon. Hill also said, "I will see you at Sandown seafront and harass your wife and 3 kids." The next day, Hill saw the officer again and repeated his threat after asking when he was going to be moved back into his old cell and not getting the reply he wanted. Oscar Vincent, representing Hill, said his client had been upset because another prisoner had been into his cell and poured a container of urine and other fluids over his possessions, including some pictures of his children. He didn't think staff at the prison were doing enough to punish the person responsible. Mr. Vincent said Hill wanted to emphasise that although he made those threats, he would not have carried them out. Magistrates gave Hill an absolute discharge, sparing him of any punishment by the court. They explained their decision by stating that he had already been punished internally by the prison, as he should have been out on licence by that point, but had been kept in prison longer.
Changes to Isle of Wight Council services. Some council services will be affected while the Isle of Wight Festival takes place this weekend. Sea Close Office, Newport, is now closed and will partially reopen from 8:30 a.m. on Monday and fully open from 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday. The Isle of Wight Council's Registry Office Marriage Room will temporarily move to County Hall until close of business tomorrow, Saturday. All birth, death and marriage notice appointments will remain at Sea Close, although they will be closed from noon today and all day tomorrow. Telephone inquiries can be made on 823 233. The Coroner's Office will operate from Sea Close as usual, although there will be no provision for personal collection of paperwork until Monday, and telephone inquiries can be made on 823 010. The Isle of Wight Crematorium will operate its usual weekend opening hours from 10 a.m. to 2. Planning services will be closed from 12 noon today and Monday. Leisure Medina will be closed until 7 a.m. on Monday.
Superb solution for air ambulance. The Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance has introduced 2 new vehicles to its critical care fleet. The Skoda Superbs have been added to the fleet due to increasing demand for the charity's services. Since buying its first vehicle in 2017, the number of missions carried out by the air ambulance has doubled. The cars are used as backup vehicles when the helicopter cannot respond, such as in adverse weather conditions or in difficult areas to reach, where the helicopter may struggle to land. Director of Operations said, "The vehicles increase our chances of bringing our advanced critical care teams to those who need us. They are crewed by doctors and paramedics who deliver advanced pre-hospital medical care at the scene."
And a laser was shone at a police aircraft. A man is due in court today, Friday, charged with shining a light at a police helicopter during a missing person search in March. Nicholas Hawkins, 53, of Heathfield Road, Bembridge, will face the charge at Isle of Wight Magistrates Court. He is charged with directing or shining a light at an aircraft in flight so as to dazzle or distract the pilot. A laser was shone at the police helicopter during a search on Tuesday, March the 26th, in the Brading area. The missing person was found safe and well at Javelin Beach just after 10 p.m. that night.
Haven welcomes Big Don. A massive new primate has arrived at Monkey Haven, but is considerably less demanding than the other residents. The attraction has welcomed a silverback gorilla made from tough fiberglass. Seated, he's a whopping 8 foot tall, which is much bigger than all the rescued monkeys and apes at the animal sanctuary. He can be found near the picnic area, where he's causing quite a stir and getting involved in numerous gorilla selfies. The idea is to draw attention to the plight of gorillas in the wild, as all species face extinction due to the trade in bushmeat and the destruction of the rainforests where they live in Africa. Haven founder Don Walser said, "We're looking for a name and we're running a competition on Facebook to win a family day out. For now, he's called Big Don." Apparently that's a tribute to me, so I'll take it as a compliment. I've also heard him called Peachy in reference to his big behind.
Burglar jailed for mean offence. A burglar smashed his way into Paddington's model shop in Ventnor, owned by Isle of Wight councillor Shirley Smart and former Isle of Wight councillor Harry Rees, just days after being bailed for a string of shoplifting offences. Mark Booth Payne, 40, of Spring Hill, Ventnor, admitted burglary and thefts at the Isle of Wight Crown Court and was jailed for 18 months. Prosecuting, Thomas Ackworth said just 3 days after being bailed, Booth Payne broke into Paddington's in the early hours of the morning and stole Dinky and Corgi models. He later sold the collection for £270, telling the buyer he got them from his mother's attic. When he sold them, they were soaking wet and only fetched a fraction of their true value. The person who bought the models knew the shop's owners and, suspecting the items had been stolen, called the police. Councillor Smart said in a victim impact statement at the time of the offence, "This incident affected us quite substantially. It could not have come at a worse time, as we are both unwell, having been in hospital, and are in rehabilitation in a nursing home. This has caused extra stress and worry in our lives when we are already struggling to recover. The shop has been closed and business has been lost. We've lost around £3,000. Booth Payne had a long criminal record for theft and burglary and was on a community order at the time of the offence. His mental health issues included bipolar disorder, ADHD, PTSD and agoraphobia. Judge Susan Evans said, "This was a very mean offence against people who were already having difficult time." She noticed his agoraphobia had not stopped him going out and offending.
Concerns over flats plan. Plans to build flats for people with disabilities and learning difficulties has been approved by the Isle of Wight Council, despite residents' concerns. Following approval by the Planning Committee, a house of multiple occupancy at 22 Grange Road, Shanklin, will be converted into 6 self-contained flats. However, concerns have been raised about vulnerable people living there. Residents Lisa and Dean Addison said it could wipe thousands off the value of our property. In an objection letter, they said, "People with learning difficulties are highly vulnerable members of society. If there is to be no live-in staff support, these residents are at high risk of self-neglect and being exploited by less salubrious members of our community. Any problems will fall on neighbours to sort out, and we, quite frankly, don't need or want the stress." Lisa, a former social worker, added, "I am just worried about them being exploited, and I worry I could end up getting involved." Local councillor Chris Quirk said there was insufficient parking with just 2 spaces available. Speaking at the planning meeting, he said, "People assume autistic people don't drive, but that is not the case." The application went in from what appears to be a company not listed on Companies House. The address they have given is a virtual address of a business centre in Bournemouth. It sounds a very dodgy situation. I think it's imperative we get really strong conditions on this to ensure it is used for supported living. Social Care Cabinet member Councillor Claire Mosdall said there was a desperate need for this type of accommodation.
Campaign group will fight 10,000 homes plan. A West Wight Villages Residents Association has been formed, to preserve the island's rural character. The association has the support of MP Bob Seeley, West Wight Councillor Stuart Hutchinson, and the Isle of Wight branch of the Campaign for the Protection of Rural England, all of whom attended its first meeting at the Wellcome Institute. Vice Chair Peter Spink said the association opposed plans to build almost 10,000 homes on the island, as outlined in the Isle of Wight Council's planning strategy. We oppose the draft island plan and the building of 2,000 houses in the Wellow area. The target figure has been set by Westminster and does not serve local needs. We believe it is wrong to destroy greenfield sites to house mainlanders who want to retire here. We urge the Council to support Mr Seeley's efforts to persuade the government the island was an exceptional case and the housing target should be lowered. Membership forms are available at Wellow Post Office.
Children's language. The language used by children across the country in a story writing competition has been analysed by experts from Oxford University Press, and the children's word of the year was Brexit. BBC Radio 2's 500 words competition received loads of entries from children this year. The top 10 words used in stories written by Isle of Wight children more than in any other area were king, ice, H-A, pizza, potato, nightmare, devil, dentist, pan and flame. Nationally, the word Brexit has undergone a huge increase in use, as well as the use of vegan and vegetarianism, plus references to climate change and plastic, which suggest British children are aware of environmental issues.
Overnight crossings running. Whitelink's overnight fastcast sailings are up and running. Whitelink is trialling overnight sailings over the summer weekends. More than 30 customers travelled in the first crossing after midnight from Portsmouth to Ryde. The Robinson and Anis families from Sandown were returning to the island from a holiday in Menorca. I'm really pleased with the sailings. We're all tired and want to get home, said Cherish Robinson. Whitelink boss Keith Greenfield said, people can enjoy a night out without worrying about catching the last fastcat home.
Armed Forces Day. A parade and entertainment has been planned for Isle of Wight Armed Forces Day 2019. The celebrations will take place at Newport Quay next Saturday, June the 22nd, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. The parade will start at 11 a.m. Among those taking part will be service personnel, veterans, standards bearers and cadets, plus island marching bands and the HM Royal Marine Band. There will be stalls, exhibitions, military vehicles and children's entertainment.
Dementia nurse call for Ireland. Dementia UK's Chief Admiral Nurse visited the island to speak to people about dementia care. Hilda Heo spoke at an event in Bembridge Village Hall at the invitation of campaigner Lady Sally Grillis and called for more Admiral nurses to be employed on the island. Dementia UK aims to employ 800 nurses across the UK by 2020. Last year, it recruited just under 200. Admiral nurses work in the community for the National Health Service and in care homes, hospitals and hospices supporting people with dementia. During Dementia Action Week, Nature Therapy and the Isle of Wight Steam Railway ran a discounted trip for people with dementia, their carers, friends and family. Several organisations were at hand at the station to offer advice on services.
Wildflower Meadow blooms. A former paddock in Rookley has been converted into a wildflower meadow. Sarah Starsmore, who has lived in the village for 23 years, has lovingly converted the area over 6 years. Contractors were brought in initially to clear away the grass, and Sarah has worked on the land ever since. The end result is a wildflower meadow in hues of red, white and blue, spanning 1.5 acres, hand-weeded 3 hours every day by Sarah. Sarah said the best time is from the end of May, when the flowers are at their best. The meadow is fantastic for bees and wildlife. The Red Barn, self-catering accommodation with access for wheelchairs, directly overlooks the meadow.
And with that, we're going to say goodbye to you. Have a nice weekend. Hope it won't be too busy with the festival and too wet. So goodbye from Imelda.
And goodbye from Chris.
And now for the second part, read by Lynn Patey
and Stephen McDevitt. Starting with the letters section. First letter is from David Pilot of Freshwater Bay, and it's headlined, "My birthday surprise had a happy ending." On my birthday, I jumped off Freshwater Bay seawall and breakwater into the sea after Candy the corgi had sunk to the bottom. I must thank Peter Kelly for saving me, as I was helpless. Although I had found Candy, the sea had smashed me against the breakwater. I also wish to thank the freshwater co-responder at the fire station, the ambulance crew and the A&E team at St Mary's Hospital. Candy is fine, but she will always be on a lead near seawalls in future. And we have a picture there of David smiling and holding Candy.
With more help, we can keep Hampshire on the Isle of Wight. This is from Hugh Griffiths, the trustee at New Close County Cricket Ground, Newport. Having been closely involved with the recent county cricket match at New Close, it was particularly pleasing to see the county press's superb coverage in last week's sports pages and letters column. A good news story well covered by John Marino, your sports editor. Looking beyond the island shores, the national newspapers and radio and TV broadcasters recognised what our new county outground achieved was on a par with more established venues such as Arundel Castle, Guildford and Cheltenham. The players from both teams spoke highly of the facilities, the appreciative crowds and the pitch and playing area created by New Close groundsman Andy Butler. The New Close Charities volunteers, ground staff and hospitality team who planned the 4 days were always confident of success. Our cricket festival helped Isle of Wight hotels, pubs and guest houses, which benefited from bookings in the quieter week that preceded half-term. With more support from local businesses, cricket clubs and the community at large, this could become an annual event of growing importance. If Hampshire Cricket offer us a first 11 match next season, we will also be looking for additional volunteers to work with the excellent group we already have.
And now a letter from Richard Steele, Chair of the West and Central Wight Labour Party at Shorrell, headlined, "No good reason to close All Saints." We believe the recent second West Wight Schools consultation has been an almost cynical exercise in futility that has served to cause great anxiety and distress to the parents, staff and governors of the affected schools. There would appear to be an unseemly rush to do something when in fact nothing needs to be accomplished immediately. It is hardly surprising a rural school should be undersubscribed, as this is a pattern seen in rural communities all over the British Isles. However, this situation is likely to be remedied in the relatively near future if the island plan, which costs a fortune to formulate, is implemented, resulting in many new homes being built in this area. There is also an increase in industry planned in the freshwater area, with businesses like Rapanui Clothing bringing younger people into the area. It is also self-evident that small children should not be bussed over long distances in the same way as secondary-aged pupils. If there is money available for refurbishing or rebuilding, then use some of this fund immediately on refurbishing or rebuilding All Saints. The funds required for constructing temporary accommodation for housing All Saints pupils on the small Yarmouth site could be equally well, and many would say better used, for the same purpose on the much larger All Saints site without unnecessarily disrupting the smooth running of the two schools. Since the West Wight schools are performing at an acceptable level, it seems foolish to disrupt any of them. Given the significant underfunding of All Saints relative to all of the other schools in the West Wight, and indeed the majority of schools on the island, they are clearly not performing very badly when one looks at the reading attainment levels. Regarding the special educational needs of many All Saints pupils, as outlined in the Yarmouth Primary School response to the proposal, it is clearly unfortunate the school with the greatest need has the lowest spending per pupil. The mismatch between needs and provision is only too self-evident, and were All Saints on at least an even playing field, their performance figures would undoubtedly improve. Finally, the Department for Education Policy and Labour Party policy is against the closure of rural schools, unless absolutely necessary.
A letter from Pat Pesce from Cowes, titled People Should Respect President. I'm 85 and I have very poor eyesight. However, I am appalled with Portsmouth City Council over their reaction to the visit of the US President to Portsmouth on the occasion of the anniversary of the D-Day landings. As a child, I watched from Cowes Green as these ships congregated in the roads, not just British ships, but American and other countries. One day we went down and they were gone. In the voyage across to France, many were lost. Mr. Trump, a guest of our Queen, is here to represent the United States of America. He was voted in by the American people, and like it or not, it is right he represents them at this time.
And now a letter from Mr. Ian McKee of Totland Bay, headlined, Seeley has picked the wrong candidate. Island MP Bob Seeley has publicly endorsed Michael Gove MP to succeed Theresa May as leader of the Conservative Party and as Prime Minister. Gove has proven himself to be a flip-flopper on Brexit, a fan of VAT on private school fees, although bizarrely now he wants to abolish the tax altogether, and a self-confessed user of hard drugs. Yet Seeley is still one of his cheerleaders. On Twitter, Seeley shows himself to be obsessed with Trump and Russia. He has gone from charging nothing for London accommodation during his first year in office to now billing the taxpayer £1,200 a month. My feeling is that in the event of an early general election, he will be taken to the cleaners by a genuine pro-Brexit, pro-free market, pro-small government and pro-personal liberty opponent.
And from Yvonne Wright in Cowes, she says, and now I know. I have often wondered why the county press publishes exotic car articles, excellent though they are, when the featured vehicles would be totally unsuitable for our local roads and general island geography. Today's article, however, extolling the virtues of the Ferrari Portofino, explains all. It is fitted with a separate bumpy road setting.
And now a letter from Cliff Bennett of Yarmouth, headlined, Leave us as an island, Mr. Feeney. In his letter in the county press of the 7th of the 6th, Carol Feeney rightly points out millions of island taxpayers' money has been wasted on stagnating infrastructure decisions. So why should they waste any more of it on the Solent Freedom Tunnel White Elephant? He states only £100,000 is required for this viability study, which is a fairly insignificant sum in today's world. In real terms, this represents less than £100 per resident of the island, or £1,000 each from 100 island businesses. Yet months after the crowdfunding appeal was launched, there is still only £21,000 in the coffers, and as Mr. Feeney points out, only £79,000 is now required, forgetting the small matter of 20% VAT or another £20,000. The fact such a small amount has been collected is a true measure of the feeling of the Isle of Wight population about a fixed link. At the present rate of progress, it will take 5 years to collect this amount, by which time I suspect that the cost will have gone up a tad, as will his last guesstimate of £2.1 billion for the whole project. Mr. Feeney has obvious limited knowledge of logistics, and if he took the trouble to find out, he would know that the ferries are not operating anywhere near full capacity, only at certain times of the day, which is a fact of every mode of transport. The claims that in the future thousands of elderly people will be unable to access the mainland for treatment are wildly exaggerated, as are his claims for the number of new builds. The simple solution is to build a new medical facility on the island, at a fraction of the cost of Mr. Feeney's tunnel. Face the truth, Mr. Feeney. The majority of people want the island to remain that, not just a sprawling suburb of southern England.
White oil is the key to prosperous economy, says Tim Luca of Brading. Regarding your front page story, Fight Over Isle of Wight Oil Site, the County Press, 7th of June 2019, the drilling of oil and gas wells is performed throughout the world safely with minimal disruption to the environment. A zero discharge policy ensures fluids used, rock cuttings created, and even rain falling on the site is collected and disposed of safely. The sealing of the site ground, approximately 1 acre, prior to operations, ensures the environment can be restored to its original state. Freshwater aquifers are drilled through, causing no damage, and isolated for future use. A regulatory framework, laws and government bodies exist to control these activities in the UK. Local residents may hear some noise for a time. There will be some heavy goods traffic between the site and ferry terminal, which can be managed to minimise disruption. The landowner does need to have their specific concerns addressed. A production site would be in operation for many years, of course. Noise barriers, hedges and trees can be used to minimise intrusion on the ear and eye. The war cry "Planet versus Profits" has been quoted. The UK debt is more than 1,800 billion, more than 25,000 per citizen. The country needs to unlock the value of hydrocarbons within its borders. If we do not, another will. Isle of Wight will unlock value. A small development of a few wells could produce 10,000 barrels of oil per day, and 6% of the gross revenue is paid to the Isle of Wight economy, which equates to about 11 million per year for a decade or longer. For comparison, this is about 7% of the Isle of Wight Council annual budget. The time has indeed arrived to think global, act local, to help our country and our island gain greater prosperity while safeguarding our local environment. P.S. I have no affiliation with the UK oil and gas industry.
And now the White Memories article, headlined "The Isle of Wight's Secret Army in Case D-Day Failed," and this is by Liam Chorley. In the event of D-Day failing, the Isle of Wight had a contingency plan. With the threat of a German invasion a very real possibility, and the island an obvious target, Winston Churchill turned to terror tactics as a last resort. In preparation, some 15 auxiliary units, made up of civilians and part of the British resistance, were established on the island in 1940. The volunteers were assigned to observe the English Channel for German raids, and to protect vital elements of the island's infrastructure. As D-Day approached, and fear of the operation's failure and ensuing counter-invasion mounted, the resistance was told fellow volunteers were to be brought to the island under a cloak of secrecy to help defend it. Between 600 and 900 men were sent from as far afield as Durham, not knowing their final destination until they arrived on the island. They were tasked with guarding Pluto, the pipeline under the ocean, and other important island installations, such as a building disguised as a hospital, a top-secret communication centre that had vital telecommunications landline laid under the English Channel and into occupied France. The island's guerrilla units had to defend a coastline of about 57 miles during the war years that preceded D-Day, but with only 100 or so local volunteers, it was an almost impossible task. With little information on how patrols operated, such was the level of secrecy involved, it's believed that only 2 or 3 men would have been sent out to cover sections of the coastline. Their capabilities were stretched, with many resistance men having important war work which prevented them from patrolling. To maintain the secrecy of their role, all were issued with Home Guard uniforms and operated under the guise of the Hampshire Auxiliary 20 Battalion GHQ Reserve. The men were well trained in guerrilla and terrorist tactics should the unthinkable have happened, and they were well equipped with weaponry. Above all, they had to be ruthless. The island's secret army were the first British servicemen in the war to be issued with the Thompson submachine gun, the Browning automatic rifle, and the Piat anti-tank missile, all designed for effective close-quarter combat. Many who lived in the countryside tended to use their own weapons, such as shotguns and crossbows, and were supplied with the necessary ammunition, but they were also issued with a Sten gun and the 22 Enfield sniper's rifle, which could either fire high-velocity bullets at long range or subsonic bullets for virtual silence if the target was relatively close.
Those who received these weapons were told they were for killing German officers and for picking off tracker dogs before they came too near. But several members admitted they were also intended to be used on locals, who they suspected were enemy collaborators. In the 1950s, an arms and ammo dump for the God's Hill Patrol was found when a field was ploughed for the first time in years, unearthing grenades and explosives. Resistance men had to be trained in the use of all such weaponry. Groups were separately trained by specialist officers, both on the ground and at centres such as Newport Drill Hall. Sworn to secrecy, so much so that their own families were oblivious to their roles, units operated covertly from underground bunkers known as operational bases, OBS, located in mainly woodland areas across the island. There were 3, possibly 4 auxiliary units in Newport, as well as ones in Cowes and East Cowes, Ryde, the West Wight, the Sandown Bay area, Whitwell and other rural districts. It is only in recent years some of these bunker systems have been uncovered, revealing some of their own secrets of how the units would live and sleep. OBS were required to be concealed, habitable and reasonably weatherproof. A standard design for OBS was used, comprising an underground chamber with a vertical shaft at one end leading to the main entrance, together with an escape passage at the other end. The entrances were secured with well-camouflaged trapdoors. Today, most OBS have collapsed, but many are still intact and often mistaken for air raid shelters. Readers that have any memories of them are encouraged to get in contact and email cartpress@gmail.com.
And now an article about the Isle of Wight Against Scams Partnership. Headline: Stop, Report, Talk Strategy to Combat Scammers. June is National Scams Awareness Month, and IWASP, the Isle of Wight Against Scams Partnership, would like to take this opportunity again to raise awareness of scams and the harms they can cause. Scams come in different forms: postal, telephone and online, all of which are designed to make victims part with their money and personal details by intimidating them or promising cash, prizes, services and fictitious high returns on investment. It is important to remember that no matter what type of scam, all scams are crimes. Stop. As scams have become more prevalent and complex, consumers must have the knowledge to recognise a scam to protect themselves and those around them. Report. Scams are massively underreported, which poses problems for the authorities tackling scams across the country. Consumers need to know how to report scams and to be empowered to take action. Talk. Anyone can become a victim of a scam, and encouraging conversations with friends and family, we can protect one another. The National Scams team are trying to enlist 1 million friends against scams by 2020 to show our support for this national campaign. We would like to ask you to join the fight and become a friend against scams. Visit the website www.friendsagainstscams.org.uk and watch a short video. reporting a scam. For advice on scams, call the Citizens Advice Consumer Helpline on 0345 404 0506. And to report a scam, call Action on Fraud on 0300 123 2040. If you are concerned about somebody you care about, or for more information on scams, visit www.iwasp.org.uk.
Your police force working to keep you safe by Superintendent Sarah Jackson. You may have seen the recent tragic news relating to the death of Jerry White in Lake. It's clear from the tributes on the social media, in the press, including this paper, and the heartfelt tribute paid by his widow, that he was a popular and well-loved man. While it may have come as a shock to many islanders to hear this is being investigated as a murder, please be reassured our officers are doing all they can to keep you safe. And officers from our major crime team have acted quickly in securing a charge for a suspect. As a force, we regularly carry out campaigns relating to road safety and being safe behind the wheel. For the most part, I think the message is getting out there, but our recent joint operations with the DVLA proves that there are still those who flout the law. During one day, the team seized 28 vehicles for having no licence, tax or insurance, and issued 21 tickets to drivers for a number of offences, including driving while using a mobile phone, not wearing a seatbelt and having no licence, insurance, tax or MOT. One person was also arrested on suspicion of drug driving. So if you're thinking of getting in the car, please make sure you're road legal. The recent Community Safety Partnership Survey has told us our committees on the Isle of Wight overall feel safe where they live. We've seen some very positive responses, with an increased number of islanders saying they felt safe in their local area, including after dark. You told us your main concerns were antisocial behaviour, misuse of drugs and alcohol, and speeding cars. Rest assured we're listening to your feedback, and the survey results will help the partnership to focus the priorities for the coming year. The survey results will form a key part of the Community Safety Partnership Strategic Assessment, which is due out later this year. This month, of course, sees another Isle of Wight festival and thousands of visitors coming to enjoy themselves. In recent years, the policing has been a huge success. We've seen low levels of crime, but remember to report anything suspicious to us. Look after your belongings and, most importantly, look after yourselves and each other.
And now the My View column, in which a panel of columnists take it in their turn to give their take on life as it is played out on the Isle of Wight. This week's is by Jonathan Young and it's headlined, School Closure Ding Dong Needs Level Playing Field. Consultation over the future of primary education in the West Wight has just ended their second unscheduled phase after the outcry which overwhelmed Plan A. The plan, you'll recall, originally involved closing All Saints Church of England in Freshwater, with its prime site sitting bang slap in the centre of the population, and hoiking its kids off in the main to the RC school in Totland via a nightmare commute of pavementless country lanes. This caused a huge kerfuffle. Isle of Wight Council planners were rightly called out on their over-reliance on Ofsted statistics, and Plan B then emerged. It essentially involves transplanting Yarmouth Church of England Primary to the All Saints site, and makes a great deal more sense, especially in light of the revelation that just 7 of Yarmouth's 91 pupils actually live in the town, with 69 travelling from Freshwater. School closures are always disruptive and often damaging to children and their education, and should never be the first option as a way of simply saving money. But where we are at with that, and I can well understand the anger of Yarmouth people with what's now being proposed, it mirrors the feelings in Freshwater a few weeks ago. Some of that anger surfaced at Yarmouth Town Council's recent annual meeting, with language evoking images of the Pied Piper of Hamelin. The children won't be brought back for the pancake races, the duck races. Actually, I'm fairly sure the Mayor, Steve Cowley, will be proved wrong on that point should the plan be approved. It's one of the things the Yarmouth staff being stolen and moved to Freshwater, according to another resident, will be well placed to insist on. But OK, passions are running high. Less defensible, in my opinion, is the premature intervention of local ward councillor Stuart Hutchinson.
Councillor Hutchinson, as a member of Dave Stewart's cabinet, is one of the 10 people who will decide whether this plan goes ahead or not. That's because the education portfolio holder, Councillor Paul Brading, has chosen to refer the decision to Cabinet rather than make it himself. Public consultation on the plan ended on Tuesday, June the 11th, and the Cabinet's decision will be made after the results of the consultation have been analysed by officers and considered in formal session. Yet at the May 21st Yarmouth meeting, with the consultation barely begun, Councillor Hutchinson announced he would vote against the quite foolish plan, which he claimed had been put forward because the people in Freshwater have said, "We have got a rotten school, but we do not want it closed." I expect to see in due course a paraphrased version of the consultation results, both for Phase 1, close Freshwater, and Phase 2, close Yarmouth. Paraphrase is one thing, but I don't think the word rotten or any words like it will feature prominently or possibly at all in All Saints supporters' submissions. Neither of Freshwater's 2 Isle of Wight Council ward councillors is a cabinet member. I don't expect Councillor Brading intended to hand a political advantage to Yarmouth when he chose to pass the decision to Cabinet. But if that is to be the effect, then something needs to be done to level the playing field and make sure the future of West Wight education is decided on merit rather than the defence of political reputation. A very good starting point would be for Councillor Hutchinson to remember an urgent prior engagement when he receives his Cabinet agenda and send his apologies for absence.
And now a brief look at the What's On guide for the island, starting with Shanklin Theatre for the forthcoming month. And we have, beginning on Thursday the 13th of June, Beyond the West End, that's from 8:15, and then again on Thursday the 20th, Beyond the West End 8:15. Saturday the 22nd, we have Cregan and Company singing the songs of Rod Stewart. On Monday the 24th, Marty Pello, that's at 7:30. Thursday the 27th, Beyond the West End, which starts at 8:15. Friday the 28th, the ELO Experience, which starts at 7:30. Saturday the 29th, the Rolling Stones Story, which starts at 7:30. Sunday the 30th, Tina, Simply the Best, which again starts at 7:30. And then moving into July, on Thursday the 4th, we have Beyond the West End again at 8:15. And on Friday the 5th and Saturday the 6th at 7:30, Al Murray. On Sunday the 7th, Theatre Train Summer Special, that starts at 5. On Monday the 8th, Paul Carrick, starts at 7:30. Thursday the 11th, Beyond the West End, starts at 8:15. And on Sunday the 14th, the Beach Boys Tribute Show, which starts at 7:30. You can contact the box office there on 01983 868 000, or you can book online at www.shanklintheatre.com.
St John's Music Festival will take place at St John's Church and Hall in Newport on Saturday the 22nd of June from 10 a.m. till 10 p.m. and on Sunday the 23rd of June from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Barbecue, ice cream, refreshments and more. The entry is free. Donations to St John's 2020 Vision. And there's a little note there saying that the Unity Stompers Jazz Band, if you choose to go and see them, is £5.
And more events coming up. We have a cockerel puppet which will feature at Mardi Gras. And we have an article about this. Its colourful costumes are currently being completed around the island in preparation for this month's Mardi Gras Biosphere Island Parade and Ride. An impressive cockerel-headed man is taking shape in workshops led by Mardi Gras organisers, the New Carnival Company, the NCC and their lead artist and creative producer, Gina Dyer. 5 women attending the course, funded through the Adult and Community Learning Service, have already spent several sessions at Oakfield Primary School learning how to make the puppet. Workshop participant France Dicken said, "We began by making the willow frame. I've never worked with willow before, so it was very interesting to learn how to bend it properly and measure it up to fit the wearer. We then covered it in tissue and glue and added the mosaic pattern. The group still have to finish the mosaic decoration, add cockerel, pheasant and ostrich feathers to the coxcomb and create a foam wattle. There will also be lights on the completed piece." Gina added, "The group have worked really well to master new skills and learn techniques required to make this large processional puppet. The cockerel-headed man will be part of Oakfield's Mardi Gras procession, representing historical environment Parter Brading Roman Villa, and linking with their curriculum topic, Life in Roman Times. The villa's education officer Spencer Brown has been providing information to ensure the historical accuracy of the costumes. Spencer said, "Our cockerel-headed man mosaic is from around 280 AD and the only one found in the world. We don't know for sure what he represents, but the uniform he was wearing tells us he was either a lanista, training gladiators to fight, or a venator, hunting animals in the arena." Over 1,000 participants from local schools and community groups will take part in the Mardi Gras Biosphere Island at 3 p.m. on Saturday, June 29th. The theme supports the Isle of Wight Area of Outstanding Natural Beauties bid for the island to receive UNESCO Biosphere Reserve status, with a decision expected just days before the parade.
A new exhibition opens at a pop-up gallery. A new exhibition has opened at the People's Pop-Up Gallery. Island charity Independent Arts has transformed an empty space on Newport High Street into a vibrant art gallery and well-being hub for art projects. More than 50 people attended the launch event last month, including councillors and IA trustees. The gallery's opening exhibition was Time and Tide, featuring artistic responses to local history. On Saturday, a new exhibition opened called Reconnections, featuring work created by people living in residential care. It highlights the power art has to reconnect people to their environment and sense of self. The charity was founded to change lives through art, and the Gallery and Wellbeing Hub will act as a social prescribing referral service for anyone that might benefit, mentally or physically, from the projects. Social prescribing is where people receive non-medical help to improve their health and well-being through activities delivered in a social setting. Most of the artwork due to be exhibited has been produced either at therapeutic workshops run by the charity or in environments designed to give artistic opportunities to people and children of all backgrounds. Chair of Trustees Wendy Varley said, "Independent Arts will always be a charity delivering arts programmes for the benefit of the most vulnerable people on the island. People of all ages experiencing disadvantage or social isolation, those with long-term health problems and elderly people in care homes." The gallery is open from 10:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m, Thursday, Friday and Saturday.
And there we have a piece of sports news for you. Headlined Neil putting blind tennis on the map at a major event in Spain, and this is by John Marino. A tennis player from the island has been in action this week, aiming to become a world champion with the GB team contesting the 2019 International Blind Tennis Tournament in Spain. Neil Fraggley, part of an 8-strong team managed by the Lawn Tennis Association, has been in action at this year's event in Benidorm, which started on Wednesday, looking to better last year's great GB result of 6 gold medals and a silver. Organised by the International Blind Tennis Association in partnership with the Sound Tennis Foundation, the tournament runs until Sunday, June 16th and features more than 70 players from 15 different countries. Ahead of the event, Neil, making his debut for the GB team, said he was very excited about representing GB in his first ever international tournament in Spain. As a player entering any event, you hope to go as far as possible, but this will be my first formal B4 competition. It is difficult to judge what the standard will be, said Neil. Obviously I'm entering with the ambition of becoming world champion, but we'll just have to see how the competition unfolds. My overriding hope is to promote visually impaired tennis. Its growth over the past 2 years has been amazing, and we already have very talented young players entering tournaments. If we can encourage more visually impaired people to take up the sport, I will consider it a job well done. A possible future Paralympic sport, the visually impaired version of tennis is adapted to a smaller court with a lower net, using an audible ball so players can hear it bounce and being hit, and depending on an individual's sight level, they are allowed up to 3 bounces before returning it.
The Cherries Pro Contract for Blossoming Jake by John Marino. Ireland-born footballer Jake Scrimshaw has seen his great dedication to succeed earn him a professional contract at Premier League Bournemouth. The former Ride Academy student has come a long way with the Cherries since he joined them as a 15-year-old, having impressed during a 4-week trial at one of the club's centres. Jake is tipped to have an exciting future by Poole Town boss Tom Killick, following a successful spell there this season, leading the goal charts with 17. He also impressed for Bournemouth's under-18s with a string of impressive performances, bagging 31 more goals. After being recently named the Cherries Under-18 Player of the Year, he signed a 2-year contract to join the Under-21 squad at the Vitality Stadium, which will give him a golden opportunity to catch the eye of first-team boss Eddie Howe. I'm delighted with the contract, but I want to push on again and get another one, said Jake. My main aim is to play for the first team. The 18-year-old, described by Killick as very strong, brave and robust, with a remarkable ability to impose himself on the games at such a young age, has come a long way at the Cherries in every sense. Travelling regularly to Bournemouth from his home on the island to train and play football is a test of anyone's dedication. None more so than for Jake, well supported by his parents, Sarah and Lee. Although he is just starting out on his journey in professional football, the countless trips across the Solent have paid dividends for the young striker. None greater than the reward of his first professional contract. Jake was first spotted by Cherries scouts, banging in the goals for Hurstwood Rangers in Havant. So when Bournemouth came calling, Jake did not need asking twice to join the Premier League's smallest club, but a club which has become a successful one. It was tough when I was in the under-15s and under-16s, Jake told the AFC Bournemouth website. I would come over from the island for training 5 or 6 times a week, and it was a bit of a struggle. After attending school, he would get a catamaran to Portsmouth and then get a lift to Bournemouth there and back with the parents of 2 of his teammates, typically getting back home after midnight most evenings. It was very difficult at the time, but it has all been worthwhile, Jake added. When you want something badly, you will do what it takes to get there. Last season, Jake helped the Cherries reach the quarter-finals of the FA Youth Cup for only the 2nd time in their history. It was a very good season, probably my best since I joined the club. Going to Poole was good for me. I scored 6 on my debut. It couldn't have gone any better. Everything just fell for me.
And now news of some maiden century joy for cricketer Adam Hose. There was a mixture of relief and great joy for Ireland-born cricketer Adam Hose after he hit his maiden first-class century. The 26-year-old, who grew up in Rookley, played for Ventnor Cricket Club before he made the step up to Hampshire, Somerset and now Warwickshire. Adam's ton arrived on Wednesday last week, on day 3 of Warwickshire's Specsavers County Championship match against Nottinghamshire at Edgbaston. Adam made 111, known as a Nelson, from 202 balls, an innings which featured 14 fours and 2 sixes out of the home side's 391 for 9 declared. He reached his maiden ton in his 24th first-class innings with a swept 3 off Matt Carter before he fell to a catch at deep mid-wicket in pursuit of a third successive 4 off Samit Patel. Adam, a hit for the Birmingham Bears T20 side last season, had also racked up the runs in the Burglar King Super Smash T20 tournament in New Zealand last winter. On scoring his maiden century, Adam said, "I think you could judge by the celebrations it meant a lot to me. I am at the age now where it was starting to bug me, with that constant question of not when the century will come, but if it will. To get it out of the way was an obvious delight." On Warwickshire's commanding position after day 3, which eventually ended in a draw, Adam added, "I think it shows where we are as a team. We are really fighting for each other, and our first bowling innings really showed that."
There's a wealth of local talent on show at the Isle of Wight Festival. We all know the Isle of Wight Festival is the best place to catch top acts, including Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds, George Ezra, Biffy Clyro and Fatboy Slim, but the lineup features a wealth of island talent too. A rising star in the indie pop scene, the island's own Lauren Hibbard, will open the big top on Sunday. Platform 1 College of Music band Sub Pacific will open the main stage on Friday after impressing a panel of judges at the White Noise Industry Showcase held at Strings in Newport last month. Platform 1 will, as usual, have its own stage at the festival in the Electro Ladyland area. The lineup features a diverse and eclectic mix of music from acoustic tunes to full-on rock and metal, written and performed by the island's young stars of the future. It's one of the best places to catch new and original music. This year's lineup features White Noise finalists Coyote Jungle, Liam Burke, Honeybones and The Optimists, plus Slacker, Reminders, Arcade Hearts, Deco, Soul Sisters and Popalicious. Platform 1 patron and festival boss John Giddings said, "Platform 1 do an amazing job in nurturing talent and helping their students learn about the music business. We are proud to be able to help them in any way possible." Another great place to check out island musicians is the Kashmir Cafe, run by Key Arts volunteers. A firm favourite at the festival, it's the place to go for real ale and real music. It has its own beer garden and all profits go to the Newport Arts Centre. The lineup features Rusty Shackle, 7778, Buster Shuffle, Tankus the Henge, Plastic Mermaids, Scarred for Life, Clipper Sound, Weather Kings, Swan Levitt and Holly Kirby and the Great Outdoors. Oh, and don't miss the Island Ales, Island Roasted Coffee and Cherry Beer.
And that's all we have time for this week, so it's goodbye from me, Stephen.
And goodbye from me, Lynn Patey.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Prison is meant to be tough, but it shouldn't be any tougher because you're blind. That's the principle behind a series of cases brought both here and in the United States, which have successfully argued that visually impaired prisoners are discriminated against. Just last week, a group of 9 visually impaired current and ex-prisoners won a compensation settlement of $1.4 million from the US state of Maryland. According to the US Department of Justice, about 7% of state and federal prisoners have vision disabilities. That's significantly higher than the 2% of people not in prison. And as people age in prison, that number increases to 15%. Here in the UK, the Ministry of Justice said they don't keep records of the incidents of visual impairment in prison. There have been cases of discrimination brought here. We'll come to that in a moment. Eve Hill is the attorney from Brown Goldstein Levy who represented the claimants in the Maryland case. She joins us from Baltimore. Eve, as I say, you represented the 9 people who won compensation. What kinds of offences had they been convicted of?
Everything from physical assaults to drug offences to robbery, a variety of different convictions.
And what examples of discrimination did they tell you about?
Well, everything. They were all housed in one facility, despite the Maryland prison system having 20-something facilities. It's a medium security facility. So regardless of what their security level was, whether they were supposed to be in minimum or pre-release or anything else, they were all put in this one facility. So they couldn't get access to the programs that would have been useful for them. And then even in that facility, they had very little to help blind inmates. So blind inmates had to rely on other inmates to walk them around. For a period, they wouldn't even let them have white canes to navigate for themselves. And then there was no accommodation made for the blind guys to be able to read or write. And almost everything in prison is done in print. So they were unable to read the inmate handbook to know what the rules were. They were unable to read their mail. They were unable to fill out medical slips or other kinds of requests for services. And they had to pay other inmates to do those things for them, often putting themselves at huge risk from those other inmates.
And so these were things which there should have been, even under the existing rules, there should have been provision for visually impaired people.
Well, that's right. The Americans with Disabilities Act requires government entities like prison systems to provide effective communication for anybody who participates in their programs, including prison programs. So they were supposed to make sure that the reading and writing was available, that they provided print materials in accessible formats like large print or Braille or electronic formats that could be read with speech-to-text software, and they just didn't do any of that.
What was the impact on the prisoners who were experiencing this?
The impact was terrible. They spent, hundreds of dollars, not in cash because you can't have cash in prison, but in commissary items and in doing services. That's a polite way of talking about really sometimes awful things that the other inmates who would read and write for them made them do. So they had to pay, they had to perform sex acts in some cases, they had to do a lot of terrible things in order to get any access at all to the written materials used in prison.
And you're saying that they actually were effectively blackmailed by their prison mates, as it were?
They and their families were extorted, threatened and harassed, yes.
Why did this come down to a legal case?
One of the inmates had, in 2012, filed a grievance within the prison system and won. And they implemented fixes for a very brief period of time. And then the computer that they were allowed to use with assistive technology broke back in 2016. So again, they had nothing. And that's what led to this. The inmates got together, got someone else to write a complaint to the court directly. And the court then appointed lawyers to help them. That was 3 years ago, and now we're settling this case.
Was nothing being done about this within the prison itself?
They were really not dealing with this. They didn't believe it was happening. They thought everything was fine.
When people drew attention to this, because presumably they were trying to tell people from outside, literally nothing happened about this.
Well, it was incredibly hard for them to try to reach anyone outside. If you wanted to complain, for example, about your inmate walker abusing you or another inmate who was reading and writing for you, you had to get that person to write the complaint for you. That was unlikely to happen.
Well, also with you in Baltimore is that Tyrell, who is an ex-offender, now out of prison, and we're just using his first name. Tyrell, can you tell us, why were you in prison?
I was actually there for a probation violation, so I was classified as minimum security.
And can you tell us about your visual impairment? What's that caused by?
I was shot 7 years ago with a shotgun, and I lost my sight instantly.
So you were totally blind?
Yes, sir.
When you went in prison?
Yes.
What was life like in prison for you as a blind person?
It's scary, lonely, if you don't have the knowledge yourself, I guess, to navigate around being blind, like I was newly blind being incarcerated, so like I had to ask a lot of questions and sometimes I didn't get answers. The first 2 weeks I was actually there, I was alone, so I ended up actually hitting my head on the stairs. That's when an officer actually tried to attempt to give me a white cane, but I was just floating around and just touching walls, and if I would bump into somebody, I asked them where I was or which way I needed to go.
And was anybody supposed to be helping you?
I was told that I'd be assigned a walker at first, but like I said, 2 weeks of being on the compound, I was just alone, so I was basically dependent on anybody I could hear around me or whatever.
And was that, when you say a walker, was that going to be somebody who was another inmate, or was it somebody with some kind of professional training?
No, sir. There's other inmates, like convicted felons, murderers, rapists, everything. Just, there's a job that they give them guys in the prison, pay them $2 a day.
Had you had help with your visual impairment before you went into prison?
Just as far as coming out of the hospital when I went to Curran's rehabilitation, as far as identifying my items and stuff like that. I never actually went to the school for the blind or nothing.
We've heard about the medium security prison, which most visually impaired people went to. Did you go to that?
Yes, sir.
So what was that like? How did you feel about being in that prison with all other visually impaired people?
I was comfortable once I found out there was other blind people there. But then once I seen what was going on and how nobody really was reaching out to assist, like I said, it was scary. It was nerve-wracking. I felt lonely all the time, so I was missing showers because I didn't know the rules. I didn't know when my cell door opened up when I first got there. It just kept opening and closing every day at the same time, and I didn't know what was going on. I was supposed to be taking a shower, but nobody ever came to tell me like it was my shower time or this is when I'm supposed to come out. And then the one time I got in the shower at the wrong time, I was actually screamed at by an officer, and he told me I was supposed to be reading my handbook, and I told him I couldn't see.
Were there other things that you couldn't do that you would have wanted to do if you'd known that they were happening or where they were happening?
I would have loved to go to work in the kitchen or just another area besides sanitation inside the building. They had a lot of jobs like groundkeepers and stuff like that. I would have loved to do all them things, but we were denied because of our blindness.
One of the big issues in this case was that blind people were excluded from jobs in the kitchen and jobs in the Maryland Correctional Enterprises that trained you to do more skills that were available out in the real world and gave you the opportunity to earn days off your sentence. And the blind people were flatly just excluded from those jobs.
The only thing I was allowed to do was sanitation job, and I could wipe the tables on the bottom floor in the day room. That was it.
Tyrell, thanks very much for talking to us and explaining all that. I want to bring in Kurt Decker, who's Executive Director of the National Disability Rights Network, who is joining us on the phone. Kurt, how typical is what we've heard and what Tyrell's been describing elsewhere, not just in Maryland?
Well, unfortunately, it's a very common problem. My organization has affiliates in every state and territory, and we represent the full range of people with disabilities. And we spend a great deal of our time in jails and prisons looking at the conditions and the lack of services for people with disabilities in prisons. Safety always trumps any kind of access or services. And just like this lawsuit, we've also brought many lawsuits that hopefully have ended up with trying to provide the services that these people are entitled to under our laws.
Do they work?
Well, we win. Then, of course, there's the problem of implementation. And as you heard, even though there was some earlier positive things, they suddenly fall apart when there's no longer any monitoring or vigilance. And then also, I think it was very brave for these plaintiffs to come forward. There's an incredible amount of retaliation for speaking out and for taking a strong stand. And it's a problem that we encounter. Often we'll hear from inmates saying, yes, we are being seriously abused, but don't say anything, because you can't be here to protect us after you leave or after we've filed a complaint.
Are there examples of good practice?
I think it's a very patchwork effect where you might get a sympathetic Department of Corrections, but whether they can bring that down to the level of every guard, every facility, every warden, it's very difficult and probably doesn't happen very often.
Kurt Decker, thanks very much for joining us on the programme. So what about here in the UK? Well, Benjamin Burrows has represented a number of visually impaired prisoners in similar cases here in the UK. Just give us an impression of the kind of cases that you've been bringing and what has been alleged in those cases.
Well, it sounds very similar to what was happening in America. Essentially acting for visually impaired prisoners who say they're being discriminated against by not being able to engage fully in prison life, so not able to access the prison regime, not able to participate in day-to-day prison life because reasonable adjustments aren't made to meet their needs. For example, not being able to work, not being able to attend education, not going to the gym or the library. And that, in many ways, that's because the adjustments they're asking for, like a buddy or a carer to be able to take them to and from those, they're either not provided or they are provided, but only on a sort of piecemeal or ad hoc basis.
So are there guidelines for these kind of things that should be implemented?
The prison service have a policy which basically confirms their obligations under the Equality Act and sets out how those obligations should be met. So they have a law and there is a policy. The problem really that we're finding in our cases is they're not actually applying those in practice.
Some of your cases have resulted in compensation, like the one that we've just been describing in the States, but admission of liability has not been made. So what does this actually achieve?
Well, it's difficult. You're essentially asking for compensation for the injury to feelings that those visually impaired prisoners has suffered. And in that individual case, if there is some sort of ongoing discrimination, you can ask for the defendant to take steps to rectify that. But what normally happens is you resolve it in that case, and then either that prisoner will then be transferred onto another prison and he will experience pretty much the same problems again. And then you have to start up another case, pretty much on the same factual grounds, seeking compensation again. So it doesn't seem to have any long-term impact in relation to that individual. And then in terms of wider impact, it doesn't seem to either, because the prison service just don't seem to be learning lessons.
So, I mean, are you suggesting that the government's happy to accept compensation because that means that they haven't necessarily accepted responsibility?
It's quite astonishing, really, the amount of compensation that's awarded in the US case, and I think that's quite a good comparison as to what's happening here, because under the Equality Act, the amount of compensation that can be awarded is actually relatively modest, and certainly very modest in comparison to the US. So the cynical part of me would say, yes, actually it's cheaper for the prison service to settle on a one-off basis these cases and not actually tackle the fundamental problem, which is making sure they're applying their policy.
I just want to go back to Eve very quickly before we lose her in Baltimore to say that that was a big compensation claim, but is it your worry that that won't actually necessarily change things?
Well, we require in our agreement that it does actually change things. So the prison is going to implement both housing people in the types of security levels that they're entitled to, that they're classified for, making sure they have access to the programs that are offered in other facilities, providing the technology that will allow them to access print materials and write independently, providing them blindness skills training so they can navigate independently, access to the jobs. They will no longer be excluded from the best skill and best compensated jobs. So we really did require that in the agreement, and we can enforce that if we need to. In addition, I would say those things are really inexpensive. And so it was important to be able to say, look, for every blind inmate that you continue to discriminate against in this way, you're going to be on the hook for cash for that. You should spend the $500 it costs to put assistive technology on the computer and maintain it, because then you can avoid the multi-$1,000 payment to someone who's been discriminated against.
And Tyrell, how long have you been out now?
Since October of 2016.
And how are you coping, and what effect did all of that have on you?
Well, it was kind of hard coming back home and having to basically adjust to my regular living, I guess, because I went through a lot being in there. So as far as like my depression, my stress level, I got into a fight just my nerve level and everything, getting my nerves and stuff back down and coming off of psych medication and stuff like that. So it's like it just took a toll on me mentally. And
how much is the compensation that you have got as a result of this case going to help? I know that it's for a lot of other things, including the legal costs and all that sort of thing. Is that going to help you at all?
It's going to help me tremendously. I have children. I haven't been able to find a job, stuff like that. I don't really have too many ways to, like, transportation to get around, so I don't have, like, ways to get back and forth to different trainers that I would like to go to and stuff like that. So it's definitely going to help out a lot in a lot of different ways.
But presumably you would like to feel that it did a bit more than just compensate. You'd like to see the system changed.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That was one of the first things I asked when they told me the case was settled out, is if they took care of the things inside the prison as far as the technology supports that they guys needed, if they were willing to give them a mobility training. Because, like Miss Eve said, rain, sleet, hail, or snow, some of them guys didn't want to walk you outside, but it was like they had to, but then again, they didn't have to, so they wouldn't sometimes. So it's like them guys need mobility trainings to learn to be independent with their walking sticks and things like that, and all the technology that they need to protect their privacy with their families as far as corresponding with them through the mail and stuff like that, and pictures and things like that.
Benjamin Burrows, what needs to happen here, do you think, in order to put some of these things right?
I think greater awareness of the problem. I think we need to keep on bringing these claims if the problems keep on going. But I think there also needs to be solutions through non-legal means, pressure on the government, pressure on the prison service to actually commit to applying their policies correctly.
We went looking for one and couldn't find it. Is there a group or an organisation who are acting as advocates for visually impaired prisoners in the UK?
Not that I'm aware of specifically. There's obviously prison reform charities who would advocate for disabled prisoners generally, but not in respect of visually impaired specifically that I'm aware of.
Benjamin Burrows in London, Eve Hill and Tyrell in Baltimore. Thank you all very much indeed. Well, the Ministry of Justice did give us a statement. They say, we make every effort to ensure prisoners with visual impairments have access to the necessary services and equipment to aid their social interactions and rehabilitation. They go on, prisoners' needs are assessed when they enter custody and they're eligible for extra health and social care, specialist workshops and provisions such as audiobooks and Braille. Well, that's it for today. You can call us directly on 0161 836 1338. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk and subscribe to our podcast by visiting bbc.co.uk/in touch. From me, Peter White, producer Lee Kumitat and the team, goodbye.
Scaffolding news for Friday the 14th of June 2019. The first one is for the Cowes area. There's current scaffolds on 93 High Street Cowes, scaffold up within hoarding, the Cameos Bath Road Cowes, the Ship and Castle Inn, Castle Street East Cowes, the Hut Watch House Lane Cowes, 19 to 20 Shooters Hill Cowes, Tudors House Bath Road Cowes, and 1 Beckford Road Cowes. Pending Cherry Picker, Tides Shooters Hill Cowes, current skips 16 Yarborough Road East Cowes, and current hoardings 93 High Street Cowes.
Newport area. Current scaffolds, Lloyds Bank, St Thomas's Square, Newport Coastal Mobility, 9 St Thomas's Square, Newport. Pending scaffolds, Unit 1, 2 and 3, 32 High Street, Newport, 16 Trafalgar Road, Newport. Current skips, 6 Southview, Newport. Current cherry picker, Man in the Moon, St James's Street, Newport.
And in the Ryde area, the current scaffolds are at 34 Castle Street Ryde, Bendula Union Street Ryde, 3536 High Street Ryde, Hill Cottage Main Road Haven Street, flats 31 to 36 Mary Mead Close Ride, Saltmere Cottage, Blewett Avenue, Seaview, 17 South Street Ride, 2A St James Street Ride, and pending scaffolds are 22 West Street, Seaview, current skips, Carita, Skaney Road, Seaview, and current cherry picker, Fowlers, 41 to 43 Union Street Ride.
Sandown and Shanklin area. Current scaffolds. Wilmer, Dorkin and Vermaper Cottages, Church Street, Newchurch. The Ocean Hotel, Townhouses, High Street, Sandown. The Toymaster, 103 High Street, Sandown in Albion Road. Chubby's, 1 Regent Street, Shanklin, a new application on the front elevation. United Reformed Church, High Street, Shanklin. Former Lloyds Bank, High Street, Sandown. Shanklin Theatre, Steep Hill Road, Shanklin. Current cherry pickers, Downsview, Sandown. Current skips, Fairway Caravan Park, Giles Lane, Sandown, and Stower Place, Sandown. Current hoardings, Premier Inn, 1 to 9, Esplanade, Sandown, and pending mobile crane, Premier Inn, 1 to 9, Esplanade, Sandown.
And in the Ventnor area, current scaffolds are the corner of Trinity Road and Madeira Road, Ventnor, 1 Boniface Road and into Trinity Road, Ventnor, 32 Pier Street, Ventnor, 30 South Street, Ventnor, Boots High Street, Ventnor, 10 and 10A Pier Street, Ventnor, and 42 High Street, Ventnor, and pending scaffolds are 9 Devonshire Terrace, Dudley Road, Ventnor, and current skips 16 South Street, Ventnor.
West Wight area. Current scaffolds, St James's Church, St James's Street, Yarmouth, the corner of Market Square, Key Street, Yarmouth.
Vehicle crossing under construction. 10 Baring Road, Cowes, 18 Arctic Road, Cowes, 41 The Rogers, Shanklin, land adjacent trees, Hills, Gase Street, Cowes, 47 Well Street Ride, 11 Hollowwood Road, Alverson Garden Village, 33 Clatterford Road, Newport, and 40 Weeks Road, Ryde.